Hi, thank you so much for tuning into this video. I know it's been some time since I've actually put anything out, but today I just wanted to get into some of the things that you should be on the lookout for when you go to tour a home. Particularly, what are some things that you should be looking for on the exterior of the property before you step foot into the inside of the home, or after you've gone through the inside? What should you still be aware of while walking the actual property, looking around at the home itself from the front exterior to the rear exterior? What are some things that you can be looking for that might be a potential concern, or you may just want to inquire about? So I'm just gonna get right into the video. One of the first things that you should be looking at as you pull up to the home probably is actually the roof. So there's a couple of different things that you want to look for pertaining to the roof. Number one, does it look like it's a flat roof? Like, is it just one tab roof? Or does it look more like a 3-tab roof where you can kind of see almost like a pattern or layering of some sort on the roof? Do you see any areas that kind of look like the shingles are a patch that look noticeably different than the other shingles laying against the sides? That's normally an indication that at some point the roof has been repaired, probably because of a leak, or possibly even if there are trees in the area, maybe a storm just came through and a tree branch fell into the roof and they just had to patch that one area of the roof. So that's something to be on the lookout for. Also, some other issues that might indicate age is if the shingle tabs are slightly curled, particularly towards the edges of the shingles. That might indicate that they're aging. And also sometimes, occasionally, depending on the lighting and a whole lot of other things like how steep the roof is, you might actually be able to see nails on the roof. If you can see nails, more than likely they have backed out of the roof. So they may need to be nailed back down, put some sealant on it. So that way when some heavy wind and rain comes into the area, you're not getting the wind literally taking those shingles off with it in a storm, and the rain is not getting right up underneath the curved area of that shingle and literally getting down into now the actual home and causing some sort of leakage and water damage. Outside of the roof, obviously most homes here in this area have HVAC, so you can look at the AC unit outside. A lot of times there will be a data plate unless it is been exposed to enough weather where it's worn off, or it's old enough that it's worn off. But a lot of times on the back side of that you can find the data plate, and it will tell you actually the date that it was manufactured, so that you know exactly how old the HVAC unit itself is. In most case scenarios, most homeowners replace the air handler at the same time that they replace the heat pump. But that's not always the case, so it just kind of depends. So it may be that you have a different age on that unit than you do on the air handler, which is typically inside of the home, but you'll just have to check that and see. A lot of times your home inspector will check it too if you can't find it, and it doesn't always have a date. Sometimes you can just go by the serial number and key that serial number in and find the date that way. One of the other things you want to be looking at for sure is, especially if it's a brick home, I would look for any cracks in the brick exterior of the property. Just walk it, really look closely at the brick veneer, or if it is all the way brick, just look really closely to see if the cracks are in the brick, or if they're along the mortar of the brick. Are they like staircase cracks where they kind of go up then over, up and over, or is it more so like split down the middle? Look around the windows. That's where a lot of cracks start. If there's a garage in the house, a lot of times, because you've got that little mantle plate above the garage door, you will notice that there's going to be some cracks above that a lot of times, just because of heat and cooling. So the expansion and contraction that we have in the area, because of the humidity and everything else that makes us love North Carolina so much. That's typically just going to be normal wear and tear, but there are some concerns that do tend to come up from cracking, especially if you start noticing that there is a prevalent amount of it throughout the exterior of the home, or even if the space between the crack, if it's like a really hairline, fractured looking crack, more than likely you shouldn't get too up in arms about it. I'd still more than likely have my buyers, I'd recommend to them that they have it checked out by a structural engineer, just for peace of mind. I just feel like, that's so important to make sure that you're aware of everything that you could possibly be aware of prior to moving into a home, just so that you don't inherit any unanticipated issues. But more than likely it's going to be fine. If the crack though is pretty wide, then that's definitely major concern. So now we're talking about some major, shifts in the structure. Obviously, if it's an older home, there's probably going to be some level of shifting that's been going on throughout the years. But still, even then, you don't want to overlook things that you could possibly just have inspected further, just to make sure that you're making an informed decision when you go through with the purchase of the house. Another thing to look at for sure is the windows. You can tell a lot from the exterior of the windows. I particularly like to look at the windows on the outside to make sure that what I'm seeing on the inside is clear. If I think that there's been a window that is fogged, meaning the seal has broken and now there's some moisture getting inside the window, so your efficiency is not going to be as good. So you may be letting cold air in the wintertime, hot air in through the summer. That is something that I normally double check from actually the outside, because it's just easier for me to see whether it's cloudy or if it's dirty because it hasn't been cleaned yet from the outside. That's just a personal note for me. The other thing is a deck or a patio or anything of that sort that has been built, particularly if it was added on after the structure was built, which you won't always know going in to see a home. But the decks are big because they're wood planks a lot of times. Sometimes you'll find track stacking or something like that, but a lot of times it's just regular wood planks. And sometimes it can be difficult to tell whether these wood planks just need a good pressure washing and a cleaning, or if they actually need replacement. But sometimes you can also look at the nails to see if they are looking extremely rusty, they're backing out of the wood planks. More than likely this deck is, aged. And then also, if you can see underneath it, try to look underneath it to see if it looks like it's being properly supported, because I've seen a lot of decks that only have a little support beam or a post on the sides and nothing in the middle, and so it's caused homes, because they were built into the home, it's caused some sagging, and that's never good. So you want to make sure that you're looking at that as well. As far as screened-in porches go, I would check to just make sure that obviously the roof line of that particular structure is not always built into the house. Sometimes it's separate. So just make sure the roof line of that structure is all good. There's no holes, there's no dry rot, there's no anything like that you might want to know as a heads up before you even move forward with getting the home inspection. At least you already know some things that are wrong with the house, because depending on the situation and what the issue is, you may want to think about already getting a credit when you put in your offer to the seller for that repair later on. That's not always the thing we jump to advocate for, but sometimes it can be helpful to negotiate for some cash up front, especially if you see that there's some things that are going to be concerning to you. One of the last things I'm going to mention in this particular video that I think you should just be on the lookout for is the vinyl siding. If windows have been replaced recently, then I would look around those windows at the vinyl siding, because sometimes they put the windows in too tightly up against the vinyl siding and it almost causes like a buckling. So now it's not secured and it needs to be reattached prior to having a nor'easter or a hurricane, hopefully, so that way it doesn't rip off your vinyl siding. Same thing, even if the windows haven't been replaced, just over time sometimes that from the wind it gets trapped in that vinyl siding and it kind of just makes it get a little bit unsecured. So you just might want to think about resecuring those things. Not a big deal, it's a relatively easy fix, but it's just something that a lot of people don't think about. And then also the holes from rocks that have been kicked up when you're mowing the lawn or anything. Any holes that you see in the vinyl siding, a lot of times we do mark that up to be a relatively minor issue, but in all honesty, if the hole is high enough up, then you're thinking about, again, rain for whatever reason does not really fall straight down here. It's always at a slant, and then you get that wind-driven rain a lot of times, especially during this time of the year, and all of that water is getting trapped behind that vinyl siding, is finding that hole, penetrating that area and running down the rest of the house, where between the vinyl siding and the rewrap, and moisture spreads. So over time you have no idea how much water is getting back there and what the damage is that is being done. So I would just keep that in mind. Replacement sooner rather than later is always good. But if you have any other questions at all, feel free to drop your questions down in the comment section below. If you have any thing that you would like to contribute to the conversation because you've bought a home in the past and there's something that you think you should be on the lookout for on the exterior of the home that I didn't cover in this video that you want to warn others about, also drop that in the comments below. And of course, if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Let me know what else you want to see. And thank you so much for watching it all the way through, and I will see you soon.